For more than 4 decades, millions of hardworking Americans unknowingly watched a portion of their retirement income disappear before it ever reached their bank accounts. Many of them spent years believing they had done everything right. They showed up to work, they paid taxes, they served their communities as teachers, firefighters, police officers, public servants, and federal employees. They planned their retirement around the benefits they thought they had earned. Then one day, when it was finally time to collect Social Security, they received a surprise. The monthly benefit they expected was smaller than it should have been. For some people, it was hundreds of dollars less every month. For others, particularly widows and widowers, the benefit they expected wasn't reduced at all. It vanished completely. Today, we're talking about one of the biggest Social Security changes in recent history, a change that is already putting thousands of dollars back into the hands of retirees across America. And if you or someone you love worked in public service, received a government pension, or lost a spouse and expected survivor benefits, what we're discussing today could be incredibly important, because right now, there are people who may be owed thousands of dollars and don't even realize it. Some have already received retroactive payments. Others are still waiting. And some may never receive what they're entitled to unless they take action. So stay with me until the end, because we'll walk through exactly who qualifies, how much money may be involved, and the critical steps that could determine whether those benefits finally reach your account. Let's start with a question. Have you ever discovered years later that someone made a mistake that cost you money? Maybe it was a billing error. Maybe it was an insurance issue. Maybe it was a pension calculation. Now imagine discovering that the mistake affected your retirement income for years. That's how many retirees felt when they learned about two little-known Social Security provisions called the Windfall Elimination Provision, commonly known as WEP, and the Government Pension Offset, known as GPO. For decades, these rules affected millions of Americans. Yet outside of retirement circles and government agencies, very few people even knew they existed. Most people only learned about them when they filed for benefits and received a number that didn't make sense. The first rule, the Windfall Elimination Provision, targeted workers who spent part of their careers in jobs that did not pay Social Security taxes. This often included teachers, public employees, firefighters, police officers, and certain government workers. Many of these individuals also worked second careers or part-time jobs where they did pay into Social Security. Naturally, they assumed those contributions would earn them a benefit based on what they paid into the system. But when retirement arrived, many discovered that a special formula reduced their Social Security benefit. The reduction wasn't temporary. It wasn't a one-time adjustment. It continued month after month, year after year. Imagine working weekends, summer jobs, or an entirely different career after leaving public service. Imagine paying Social Security taxes during those years and believing those contributions were building your retirement security. Then imagine finding out that the benefit connected to those contributions would be significantly reduced. That experience was frustrating for countless retirees. Many felt blindsided. Others felt betrayed. Not because they expected special treatment, but because they believed they had earned the benefit through years of work. The second rule affected an even more vulnerable group, widows and widowers. The government pension offset reduced Social Security spousal and survivor benefits for individuals receiving certain government pensions. And in many cases, the reduction wasn't small. It completely erased the benefit. Think about that for a moment. A husband works for decades, paying into Social Security. A wife plans her retirement knowing that if something happens to her spouse, survivor benefits will help provide financial stability. Then, after her spouse passes away, she discovers that because of a government pension she earned herself, the survivor benefit is reduced dramatically or disappears altogether. Many families never expected that outcome. Many retirees didn't learn about the rule until they were already dealing with the emotional pain of losing someone they loved. For widows and widowers living on fixed incomes, the financial consequences could be devastating. A benefit they counted on simply wasn't there. Over the years, organizations representing teachers, firefighters, law enforcement officers, and government employees repeatedly argued that these provisions were unfair. They pushed for change. They organized campaigns. They met with lawmakers. They testified before committees. Year after year, they made their case. And year after year, nothing happened. Congress discussed the issue repeatedly. Bills were introduced, promises were made, but the rules remained in place. As the years passed, millions of retirees continued experiencing reductions they felt were unjustified. Some accepted it because they believed nothing could be done. Others kept fighting. Some spent decades advocating for reform. Then something remarkable happened. After more than 40 years of debate, lawmakers finally acted. In January 2025, the Social Security Fairness Act became law. For many retirees, it represented something they had waited decades to see. The law eliminated both the Windfall Elimination Provision and the government pension offset, not partially, not gradually, not through a complicated phase-in process. The provisions were removed, and perhaps even more significant, the changes applied retroactively. That single detail transformed the law from an important reform into a potentially life-changing financial event for millions of people. Why? Because retroactive means the government must correct benefits going back to January 2024. For affected retirees, that may result in a substantial lump sum payment, in addition to higher monthly benefits going forward. Imagine opening your bank account and finding several $1,000s deposited unexpectedly. For some retirees, that's exactly what has happened. Reports indicate that average retroactive payments have reached several $1,000s. Some individuals have received significantly more depending on their circumstances. For a retiree living on a fixed income, that kind of money can make a real difference. It can help pay medical expenses. It can reduce debt. It can create an emergency fund. It can cover home repairs, or it can simply provide peace of mind. And sometimes peace of mind is the most valuable benefit of all, because retirement isn't only about money. It's about security. It's about sleeping better at night. It's about knowing you can handle life's unexpected challenges. One retiree described the change as finally receiving recognition for years of contributions. Another said the extra income allowed them to stop worrying every time a bill arrived in the mail. Those stories remind us that retirement planning is never just numbers on a statement. Behind every benefit calculation is a real person, a real family, a real life. And that's why this issue matters so much. But here's where things become complicated. Just because the law changed doesn't mean every account has already been updated. The Social Security Administration has had an enormous task in front of it. Millions of records require review. Millions of calculations need adjustment. Every case has its own history. Every account has its own details. That takes time. And while many corrections have already been processed, others remain under review. That's where some retirees find themselves today, waiting, wondering, checking their accounts, trying to determine whether their adjustment has been completed. And unfortunately, many people assume that if they haven't heard anything, nothing is owed. That assumption could be costly. The reality is that some retirees have received retroactive payments, but are still waiting for their monthly benefit adjustment. Others may qualify under multiple provisions and need additional review. Still others may have older claims that require further action before benefits can be fully restored. That's why paying attention matters. Not because you should panic, not because something is necessarily wrong, but because retirement benefits are too important to ignore. You've spent decades building your financial foundation. You deserve to know whether you're receiving everything you've earned. So how do you know if this affects you? There are several groups that should pay particularly close attention. The first group includes teachers and education professionals who worked in pension systems that did not participate in Social Security while also working other jobs covered by Social Security taxes. The second group includes firefighters, police officers, and state or local government employees who spent portions of their careers under similar pension arrangements. The third group includes certain federal employees who spent years under older retirement systems before newer structures were introduced. And finally, there are widows and widowers whose spousal or survivor benefits were previously reduced or eliminated because of pension-related offsets. If you fall into one of those categories, it's worth taking a closer look at your Social Security record, even if you believe your account has already been corrected, even if you've already received a payment. Verification matters, because when it comes to retirement income, assumptions can be expensive. And after waiting more than 4 decades for these changes, the last thing anyone wants is to miss money they're entitled to receive. People assume that once a law is passed, everything happens automatically. In a perfect world, that would be true. But anyone who has ever dealt with paperwork, pensions, insurance claims, or government agencies knows that reality is usually more complicated. Systems have to be updated, records have to be reviewed, files have to be processed, and when millions of Americans are involved, even small delays can create a backlog that takes months to resolve. That's why some retirees have already seen their benefits increase while others are still waiting for updates. It's also why checking your status is so important. I recently spoke with a retiree who spent nearly 30 years teaching in a public school system. Like many educators, she dedicated her life to helping others. She wasn't focused on maximizing wealth. She wasn't chasing promotions. She simply wanted to make a difference. When retirement arrived, she expected her Social Security benefit to reflect the years she spent working part-time jobs during summers and holidays. Instead, she discovered her benefit was significantly lower than she anticipated. At first, she thought there had been a mistake. Then she learned about WEP. For years, she accepted the reduction because she believed there was nothing she could do. Then the Social Security Fairness Act became law. Months later, she logged into her account and noticed a change. Her monthly benefit had increased, not by a few dollars, by hundreds. Suddenly, the financial pressure she had been carrying became a little lighter. That extra income meant fewer difficult choices, fewer moments wondering whether to delay a purchase, fewer worries about rising healthcare costs. Stories like hers are playing out across the country, and they're not just about money. They're about dignity. They're about fairness. They're about people finally receiving benefits that reflect years of work and contribution. For widows and widowers, the impact can be even more emotional. Imagine losing your spouse after decades together. The grief alone can be overwhelming. Then imagine discovering that the survivor benefit you expected to receive is reduced dramatically or eliminated altogether. Many families experienced exactly that. For some, the loss of survivor benefits created financial hardship at one of the most difficult moments of their lives. Now, with GPO eliminated, many of those individuals finally have an opportunity to receive benefits that were previously unavailable. That's why this issue deserves attention, because behind every policy change are real people whose lives may be improved in meaningful ways. And yet many affected individuals still haven't checked their records. Some assume they don't qualify. Others believe someone will contact them if money is owed. Unfortunately, that's not always how the process works. The safest approach is to verify for yourself. Think of it this way. If your bank accidentally deposited several $1,000s into an account you forgot existed, would you want to know about it? Of course you would. The same principle applies here. Retirement income is too important to leave to assumptions. That brings us to the practical side of this conversation. What should you actually do? The first step is simple. Review your Social Security account. Many retirees haven't logged in for years. Some created an account once and never checked it again. Others never created one at all. Yet your online Social Security account contains valuable information about your benefits, payment history, and current status. Take the time to review it carefully. Look at your monthly benefit amount. Compare it to previous statements if possible. Pay attention to any references to prior reductions. Reviewing these details may help you identify whether changes have already been applied. The second step is communication. If something doesn't look right, don't hesitate to contact Social Security. Many people avoid making the call because they expect long wait times or complicated conversations, but asking questions is often the fastest way to gain clarity. Remember, no one cares more about your retirement income than you do. A brief conversation today could prevent months of uncertainty later. Keep notes during the call, write down dates, record names if possible, document the information you're given. Organization can be incredibly helpful if additional follow-up becomes necessary. Now let's talk about the third step, which may be the most important for certain individuals. Widows and widowers whose survivor benefits were denied entirely under previous rules should not automatically assume that every case was reopened and corrected. Some situations may require additional review or even a new application. That possibility surprises many people. They assume the system can simply reverse an old decision. But if a claim was denied outright years ago, there may not be an approved benefit record available for automatic adjustment. That's why asking specific questions matters. The difference between receiving benefits and missing out on them could come down to one phone call, one conversation, one request for clarification. Sometimes the simplest actions create the biggest results, and that's a lesson that extends far beyond Social Security. Throughout retirement, financial success often comes from small, consistent actions: reviewing accounts, updating beneficiaries, monitoring expenses, asking questions, staying informed. These habits may seem minor individually, but together they can have a tremendous impact on long-term financial security. The Social Security Fairness Act is a perfect example. Millions of Americans spent years accepting reductions because they believed those reductions were permanent. Today, many of those same individuals have opportunities they never expected. That's encouraging. But it's also a reminder. Retirement planning isn't something you complete once and forget forever. Rules change, laws change, benefits change, opportunities emerge, and those who stay informed are often best positioned to benefit. One of the most powerful things about retirement is that it gives you time to focus on what matters most: family, friends, health, purpose, experiences. Yet financial stress can make it difficult to enjoy those things fully. Every additional dollar of reliable income creates flexibility. Every increase in monthly cash flow creates options. Every reduction in financial uncertainty creates confidence. That's why this issue resonates so strongly with so many retirees. For some, the increase may cover groceries. For others, it may help pay property taxes. For others, it may provide resources to travel, visit grandchildren, or finally tackle long-postponed home repairs. The amount varies from person to person, but the impact can be meaningful regardless of the number. And perhaps the most encouraging part of this story is what it represents: persistence. For decades, people affected by these provisions continued advocating for change. Many never gave up. Some spent years writing letters to lawmakers. Others attended meetings, supported organizations, and shared their experiences. They believed the system could be improved. Eventually, their efforts helped produce results. That's a powerful reminder that change often takes longer than expected. But long delays do not necessarily mean progress is impossible. Sometimes meaningful change requires patience. Sometimes it requires persistence. And sometimes it arrives after people have nearly stopped expecting it. If you're already receiving the correct benefit, that's wonderful. If you've already received a retroactive payment, that's excellent. But if you're unsure whether your account has been fully updated, take the time to check. A few minutes of effort could potentially uncover benefits that make a meaningful difference in your retirement. And if this information doesn't apply to you personally, think about the people in your life. Do you know a retired teacher, a former firefighter, a police officer, a state employee, a federal worker hired under an older retirement system, a widow or widower relying on survivor benefits? Many people who qualify may never hear about these changes unless someone tells them. Sometimes the most valuable financial information comes through a simple conversation between friends, family members, or neighbors. One shared article, one phone call, one recommendation to check an account. Those small actions can have a real impact. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought. Retirement is not just about what you've saved, it's also about what you've earned. Social Security benefits represent decades of work, sacrifice, and contribution. They represent early mornings, long shifts, stressful days, and years of dedication. When changes occur that may affect those benefits, paying attention matters, not because money is everything, but because financial security provides freedom, freedom to make choices, freedom to support loved ones, freedom to enjoy the years you've worked so hard to reach. The Social Security Fairness Act represents one of the most significant benefit corrections many retirees will ever see. For some, it means a larger monthly payment. For others, it means a substantial retroactive deposit. And for many widows and widowers, it may mean access to benefits they never thought they would receive. The opportunity is real. The potential impact is significant. The next step is simply making sure your own record reflects what you're entitled to receive. Take a few minutes, review your account, ask questions if necessary. Follow up when something doesn't look right, because after all these years, you deserve to know whether every dollar you've earned is finally finding its way home. And if you found this information helpful, share it with someone who may benefit from hearing it. You never know whose retirement could be improved by a single conversation. Sometimes the most meaningful gift we can give another person is information that helps them protect their future. And that future may be closer and brighter than they realize.